Exactly. Yeah, a little short one here, we did it for grandchildren.
Yeah, I've gotten a couple short ones over the years, like if I donate, they gave you a shofar type thing, and
Right,
so I gave one to my sister-in-law,
right.
who was thrilled to get it, but she would have never spent the money
Mm-hmm.
to do it,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so.
Yeah.
At prison, for the beginning of our service, I often ask for volunteers to blow the shofar, and usually well, depending on the individual, usually it's a difficult task to accomplish, particularly for some of the first times. Even some has been blowing it, but last night I rode my motorcycle there, so I just had my little blondie shofar, this big or whatever, and it was exceedingly difficult for the individual that volunteered to get going. There's actually the first person was a complete failure, so he handed over the shofar to the next guy in line, and he got some sound out. So we called it acceptable and went on from there. So it was good, acceptable enough to
Okay,
make
I
it
didn't play trumpet, but I do know you have to buzz your lips like you do play trumpet.
pretty similar to that. Yeah.
Like you're doing a raspberry?
Yeah, and for me,
Exactly.
it works best, particularly with a small one, to get just the far right corner.
That's what I have to do. I can't put it in the middle, I put it
Yeah.
to the side.
And I kind of hold it between my fingers like this to help it get
Help you
stabilized.
Stabilize
Yeah.
your lid.
Yeah. So he did get a chance to try again at the end of the service and did well. So learning had occurred.
Well, they probably enjoy getting to do something new.
Yes.
Other than make hooch.
Well, you can't really make it hooch during the service. That's kind of too much supervision. They are going to want me to take roll or take the count sheet when next. Yeah, because they're changing over from the chaplain is becoming a wage employee versus a salary employee. So an hourly employee is a term, an hourly employee. So previously you could, leave later, but it makes sense to leave, before the service starts. So I need to probably try to figure out how to get there a bit earlier so I can pick up the count sheet and get started on that. But so I do similar things at Sayre when that was a functioning prison up there, because our service there as well was over count. So I didn't ever do the count sheet per se. We had one of the inmates that was basically the scribe did that as a role. He completed it, and I took it to the corrections officer when he called me on the radio and said, "Here, I'm ready to come pick it up." So. Well, anyway, we're getting ready to do a Midrash on Torah portion Devarim.
I was gonna ask, have you heard anything on how Audrey's doing?
I heard from Eldon yesterday. He just wished me a Shabbat Shalom, but not any details of how Audrey's doing. So I don't know. But he hasn't said anything that she is not doing well. But I don't know one way or the other.
Well, no news, it's probably good news, but it's like, is she able to walk fairly well now, or, it's been long enough, I would think. Although she had surgery for those broken legs and ankles.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm sure she's probably enrolled in some sort of physical therapy program, I would think, to get
Yeah.
that.
I got a question we might need to discuss before we get into it.
Okay.
Chapter 1, verse 1. Where mine reads, "These are the words which Moses addressed to all Israel beyond the Jordan, in the desert, in the Arba, facing sea between Paran and Tabal, Laban, Azarah, and Dezah." Is that east or west of the Jordan? Is that before they crossed it?
I think it's before they cross.
Before they crossed? Or is this, because it kind of makes it, I guess depending on how it's worded, makes it sound like once they'd crossed into the land that they were going to get, then Moses is addressing these
Well,
words.
Moses didn't get to go over.
That's what's going to be my point.
But
God
it
did
did
not
say
allow
on
him
the,
across the Jordan.
they're on the far side.
So,
If you're owning of Israel, then the others, the east side of Jordan would be the
so
far
where
side.
this says addressed Israel beyond the Jordan, they would be writing this from when they crossed about what Moses did before they crossed.
Well, I see.
In that case, Moses wouldn't have wrote this because he wouldn't have been alive. Maybe he didn't write this
It
recap.
seems like they're poised to cross over at the start of this time. All these places, you see, where is, it's on the other side of the Jordan. So these are before you cross over. Because all the places here were place names that you saw en route. They're not on the Israel side of the Jordan.
Okay, so when it says in this version, beyond, he addressed them beyond the Jordan, that means before they crossed over. Because he would have still been alive.
Yeah, the word, you recognize the word. The word is that word right behind you on that CC painting over there. Avar. But avar in this case. On the other side or in the crossing over. This is how it translates on the other side of the Jordan. Between the wilderness, the Arava, opposite the Sea of Reeds, or the Yom Suf, between Paran, Horeb, the way of Mount Seir, until Kadesh Barnea.
Okay, so the other side of the Jordan is the east side,
Yes,
Of the
it's
Jordan.
the
pre-crossing.
pre-crossing.
Okay, so then this would be talking about the east side, but it was written from the west side.
Was it? Because.
These are the words which Moses addressed to all Israel beyond the Jordan.
Well,
Mine says on the far side of the Jordan.
Yeah, either way.
yeah, but on the far side would be the opposite side, before the crossing over. You don't get crossing over the river.
Okay, so who's writing that though?
Moses.
Saying that Moses wrote this before he crossed over.
This takes before they cross over, so it's like overlooking the crossing before he dies.
I think he wants to know who wrote it.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting, that's my point, is who wrote this introduction? Was it Moses himself or someone else about
A
Moses?
scribe.
Well, it could have been, I suppose it could have been Joshua writing it about these.
That was my
quoting
thinking,
Moses is
probably.
speaking. So it could have been written, it all takes place before they cross over. Anyway, let's,
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry.
yeah. Before we really
I
get
have
started.
these questions and I wait till I get here and bounce it off Wayne, and sometimes it gets distracted.
Well, sometimes, as with me anyway, sometimes if I forget to ask those kind of things when it's time. Let's see if this can cross over. Okay, there we go. And here we go. So the text says from Devarim 8 verse 10, which is in a future Torah portion, so you'll eat and be satisfied, and you'll bless Adonai your God for the good land he has given you. So let's do that. Abba, we have eaten and we're satisfied. We thank you for the land. It's in Yeshua's name. Amen. All right. So this kind of as a recap here from what we read. These were the aliyot, and this was the first verse. And it's in this one, it's transliterated as be'ever. If you look on the text there in the top, it's the second from the last word on the left-hand side there. Be'ever. Typically in, by, or with, crossing over. Ivri is the Hebrew word to cross over. So it's in the, with the, by the crossing over at the Jordan. You could say it as well, because the next word there you see is ha-yarden, which is the Jordan, is the next word there. So it's like in the crossing of the Jordan, or at the crossing site of the Jordan. That's how I would say that. And here's an English translation from the Judaica Press. I'm sorry, Jewish Publication Society, JPS. It says on the other side of the Jordan, so it's not on. You know, if you look at it, and if it means on the other side of the Jordan, then your statement will be it's correct that it's Moses speaking, but perhaps someone else, because we know at the end of the book it's Joshua who's writing it. Beginning of the book might be this preamble. May well be Joshua who is recounting what Moses said.
Yeah, that's kind of the way, that makes it more clear to me anyhow. Because he at that time then would be referring to the east side as the other side.
All right, so with that said, how many of the mitzvot are counted from this portion? Is it
It's not a lot.
It's what?
2, 3, 7, or 10?
I go A.
I'm gonna go A.
Mitzvot.
How many commandments?
Of course, it depends on what you're calling, if it's a commandment that's one of the commandments, or if it's a commandment that they do this and it was only done then. Yeah.
I blew it last week, there was a lot of stuff, but they included it in one.
Yeah, it just depends on what Rambam included and what he didn't.
There's not a lot in here, though.
All right. The first one out
It's 10,
is 10.
and 7's gonna be out too.
I'm going 3.
So it's between 2 and 3. It's A.
That got buzzed.
Which two did he?
Yeah,
All from chapter 1, verse 17.
Do not show partiality, okay, yeah, that
Okay.
one, that's a judge must not fear.
The text reads, I'll read word for word from the other. Do not show deference to individuals in judgment, equally to small as to great. Shall you be attentive? Do not tremble before any man, for the judgment of God it is. The matter that is too difficult for you, you shall bring to me, and I shall give. So, do not show partiality to the person who is poor. And it says, do not fear a wicked man in judgment, which is taken from the word do not tremble before any man. For the judgment to God it is. So it is talking about, it doesn't say the word wicked in the text directly. That's why it has it as in parentheses there. But you wouldn't be trembling before a man who isn't.
Or somebody who's really powerful.
Yeah,
In a case against someone who's not.
fearing retaliation.
But I think that would be the same concept as wicked and
Yeah.
powerful that are
Because
using their
use-
power in a wicked way,
Yeah.
or a way that is, yeah.
I get frustrated with our judicial system now, because, okay, it may not be the rich person that has preference, but sometimes it's the poor person that has preference. Oh, we feel sorry for him, so.
Yeah,
Yes.
and this covers both.
And this
Okay.
covers both, or,
Yeah.
oh, he had a poor childhood, he had a terrible childhood, so we're gonna make things easy. It's like, it
It's
doesn't,
not his fault he murdered that woman.
because, he just had a bad childhood.
The system's to blame.
Yeah, so really, we're supposed to show no partiality no matter what.
If you're a judge. I don't think that's talking to us in particular, although we should be like that.
We should
Yeah, I
be
think this in particular is talking about
The judge.
judges.
But a lot of the judges give leniency because they had a poor childhood or they're rich or whatever. So we're not supposed, our judicial system should have no partiality.
Right. Theirs shouldn't have anyhow. Ours shouldn't either, but
Ours shouldn't either.
he's addressing theirs back.
But supposedly, we have ours is based on.
Based on this, yeah.
Scripture.
We have a engraving of Moses the lawgiver on the Capitol, not Capitol, but
Supreme Court.
the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
As you walk in under Moses the lawgiver.
I think there's been several attempts to remove that
But
But-
there are others added around it.
Yeah.
It covers a lot of different religions, but he's the one front and center.
All right. So this is how the Targum renders this. So what do I mean by the term Targum?
I was gonna ask that.
Commentary on the wall.
Targum,
On the wall.
you could say that in a sense. Targum is an Aramaic word that means translation. In practice, it's translation with commentary. To give, it was in Aramaic, but it was at a time when Aramaic was the commonly spoken tongue. And so if it was just in Hebrew, people might not understand it. This gives an Aramaic in their own language and gives a translation so they're giving a commentary on what it means in the text. So, for example, in a different part of the Targumim, there are more than one Targum. Targum Onkelos and Targum Jonathan are the two most common. Targum Onkelos is the official Targum of the Torah, and Onkelos is the official Targum of the Torah, and Jonathan the official Targum of the prophets. But the point is, like, well, in a section in Genesis, in Genesis in Bereshit, talks about Shiloh in Hebrew, whereas the Targum translates Shiloh as Mashiach, to give the sense of what it is in Genesis 46, I believe. Anyway, so this is how the Targum renders these words. It says, "These are the words which Moshe spoke with all Israel beyond the Jordan, reproving them because they had sinned in the wilderness and had provoked the Lord to anger in the plains over against the Sea of Suf, in Paran where they had scorned the manna, and Hazarot where they provoked to anger on account of flesh, and because they had made the golden calf." So it expands on the text to give an idea of what it's talking about. So a lot of the words from the Hebrew are in here, but there are some additional ideas of reproving them because they had sinned in the wilderness. That's kind of obvious that they had sinned in the wilderness, and it kind of says that these places where things happened, they had done some things that were not favorable for them and caused them to be in the wilderness for those 40 years, not in the 2 years they should have been there, perhaps. Anyway, that is the Targum. So where are we on the calendar? Is the next kind of section here. Kind of just kind of a commentary on where we are, or just a discussion of where we are on the calendar. As I mentioned, today is called Shabbat Hazon, the Shabbat of Vision. The Shabbat before the 9th of Av is always known as the Shabbat of Vision, and is based on the Haftorah that always occurs on the portion before the 9th of Av, which is the portion we read today, where it says, "This is the vision of Isaiah." And so this year, the 9th of Av, Tish B'Av, begins at sunset this evening. So what is the vision? What is the 9th of Av kind of about? Well, this is where the reading comes from our portion. This is the vision of Yeshayahu, the son of Amoz, which you saw concerning Yehuda and Jerusalem during the time of Hezekiah or Uzziyahu, Yotam, Achaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah. So, what I think you can draw from this, my conclusion from this as we read through our section, is we can connect Israel's transgressions with the calamity that followed. In other words, they rebelled against Yah, and they were, as a result, exiled from the land. I think that's the long and short of it. And this is really talking about, of course, the first exile to Bavel as a result of that, not the Roman one per se. So this is a short, some of it is tradition, some of it is hardcore history, in terms of the 9th of Av, the day that events that are attributed to being occurring on the 9th of Av. The first one is that Israel believed the bad report of the spies on the 9th of Av. And of course, that was the real trigger for Israel having to stay in the exile until that generation died. That was a punishment for rebellion against really the words of Caleb and Joshua, who gave their report. It was an honest report saying that they are big, but also with a commentary that they can destroy them. So the first temple destroyed by the Babylonians, and the second temple destroyed by the Romans, all attributed to being occurring on the 9th of Av. There is a different date of burning for one of those, but the temple was, breached on those days and perhaps destroyed over a longer term fire, because it's a large structure that would take a little bit of time to completely demolish.
More than a day.
More than a day to completely go. But you can say that the temple fell on those days and were subsequently looted and burned by the winners. When you see one of the vignettes from the Second Temple period is the Roman arch where they're carrying temple goods through it. So it wasn't the Second Temple was burned by the Romans, and it is said that the walls were not destroyed until a bit later because the Romans were breaking the bricks down of the temple with their swords to pry out the melted gold that had, after the fire had run down the walls. And so they were prying that apart, literally to take it apart brick by brick in order to get the gold from it. But things were not completely destroyed, melted inside, because you can see that arch in Rome where they're carrying the goods out, including what's, you see the temple menorah being carried out to them. So it survived the destruction of the temple, as did some of the other items they're carrying through that's depicted in the arch. So things weren't all melted. Some of the things were looted by the Romans.
So that fits right in with Yeshua saying, "These, not one stone of these will be on another."
Yeah.
If there was gold in them and they took them apart for the gold.
Right. So the what's called the kotel, or sometimes the Wailing Wall, the Western Wall, isn't the temple wall. It's the retaining wall for the Temple Mount. It's not part of the temple itself. So that is some people would say. Some people have said, "Oh well, if the Western Wall stands, Yeshua's prophecy of the temple being destroyed is wrong." But that's not the temple wall. That's the retaining wall of the temple after the wall or the mountain had been rebuilt by Herod to enlarge and flatten it out.
Isn't that wall the closest wall to the inside of the Holy of Holies? It's not supposed to be the closest wall up there to it?
Well, yes. The Western Wall is on the surface, on top. You can get to that easily. There's
I've been to the Western Wall.
Well, from nearby it, if you're looking at the Western Wall to the left, there is an excavation entrance where you go in and then go down to the lower level. And along that walk on that edge is the closest place to the Holy of Holies, or where Holy of Holies was at the time. There's I believe the women's prayer area is the closest place you can get. Not the women's side of the hotel, but down below that, there's a women's prayer area they set up that is the closest part to where the Holy of Holies would have been during the Second Temple period, or during the First Temple period, because I don't know that the ark was actually there at the time during the Second Temple period, because I think it had been not returned after it had been hidden by Jeremiah at the destruction of the First Temple.
I think that's really interesting. I mean, Jeremiah hid the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah.
And you sit there and you go, every time they entered the Holy of Holies, where they're supposed to sprinkle the blood, they were sprinkling it on the floor, because it wasn't there.
That is probable.
Well, it was a false priesthood anyhow.
Well, not initially though, right? I mean, Ezra
not
set it
initially,
up,
but
but
I mean-
at some point in time it became apostate, so to speak, yeah. So also attributed to the 9th of Av, Hadrian crushed the Bar Kokhba revolt. The last stand against the Romans occurred on this date in about 135 CE. 100,000 Jews were killed by the Romans. So it was a pretty destructive date during Hadrian's time period. In the first, 1,000 years later, roughly, Pope Urban II declared the First Crusade. Lots of Jews were killed en route. You remember there's a synagogue in Mainz, I believe, that was, if I'm remembering right, was as the Crusaders were marching through Europe to get to a port to get to Jerusalem. They stopped in what would have been, what is today Germany, and herded all the Jews of the town into the synagogue and burned the synagogue. There was a lot of that thing going on at the time, because it was attributed to, the Jews killed Jesus, therefore we should kill them.
The Romans had no part.
The Romans had no part of that. Romans were gone with it. It was a Christian. It was the Pope of Rome, but it was, still a pretty anti-Christian thing to do. I think would be to do that. 1290, the Edict of Expulsion by Edward Longshanks, aka Edward the First. If you remember if you've ever seen the Braveheart movie, that's Edward the First, and that the king that's fighting against William Wallace. The Edict of Expulsion was issued on the 9th of Av in the year 1290 of the Common Era. Jews were allowed to return by Oliver Cromwell, but and by an act of Parliament, they could be naturalized citizens in the UK in 1753. There is no the act of expulsion, or the Edict of Expulsion, was never rescinded by a British monarch to date. And the final slide on the history part of it is the Spanish Inquisition, started in 1492 on the 9th of Av. You can read commentaries about when that a lot of the crew of Columbus's vessels were Jews escaping from being killed in the Inquisition. They went past a lot as they're leaving the harbor there. They went past a lot of Jews on boats with broken masts that had been set to sea. Presumably they wanted them to die there. And in 1914, the World War I began when Russia declared war on Germany. Arguably, German resentment from being crushed during World War I set the stage for the Shoah, the Holocaust, beginning with the Nazis when they took over in 1933. This is a commentary from Chabad, talking about the 9th of Av, Tisha B'Av. Mourning the destruction of the temple and the exile of Israel, we abstain from eating and drinking, bathing and wearing leather footwear, and marital relations for the night and day of 9th of Av, sundown on the 8th to nightfall on the 9th. It is customary to sit on the floor or a low seat until after midday. Torah study is restricted to laws of mourning, passages describing the destruction of the temple, and the like. Tefillin are worn only during the afternoon mincha prayers. And anyway, that's a tradition about how to keep the fast of the 9th of Av. What we see in the scriptures about it, it doesn't really give a lot of details on what to do with it. we see it discussed in Zechariah chapter 8. I have 2 slides on that reading it. It doesn't really give a lot of details about it. More or less is an historical commentary on fasts that were observed in Israel during the Second Temple period, or at least after the First Temple period. It says, this is from Zechariah 8. Adonai Tzevaot says, I will save my people from lands east and west. I'll bring them back, and they'll live in Jerusalem. They will be my people, and I will be their God, with faithfulness and justice. Adonai Tzevaot says, take courage, you who are hearing, you who are hearing only now. In these days, these words spoken by the prophets, when the foundation was being laid for building the temple, the house of Adonai Tzevaot. Adonai Tzevaot says, the fast days of the 4th, 5th, 7th, and 10th month are to become times of joy, gladness, and cheer for the house of Yehuda. Therefore, love truth and peace. Adonai Tzevaot says, in the future, peoples and inhabitants of many cities will come. Inhabitants of one city will travel to another and say, we must go ask Adonai's favor and consult Adonai Tzevaot. I'll go too. Yes, many peoples and powerful nations will come to consult Adonai Tzevaot in Jerusalem and ask Adonai's favor. Adonai Tzevaot says, when that time comes, 10 men will take hold, speaking all the languages of the nations, will grab hold of the cloak of a Jew and say, we want to go with you, because you've heard that God is with you. And that's all talking about the fast days turning to joy at a future date. So what, I think we've talked about this in the past, but what were those dates concerning? The fast of the 4th month was, on the 9th day of the 4th month was the day that it was breached, the temple wall of, the walls of Jerusalem were breached by the Romans. And on the 17th day, by the Babylonians. And so before the end of the Second Temple period, the fast of the 4th month was on the 9th day of the 4th month in remembrance of the Babylonians breaching the wall. Later, it became the 17th day, which is the day that the Romans breached the wall. The 9th day of the 5th month is destruction of the temple. Really, both temples were destroyed on this day. And so the fast of the 5th month is fasting for that. The fast of the 7th month is for the murder of Gedaliah. We see that in Jeremiah 41. And the fast of the 10th month, the 10th day of the 10th month, is the siege of Jerusalem's beginning. Nebuchadnezzar, so it would be the Babylonian siege, the 10th day of the 10th month. So
Who's the guy that was murdered? That name isn't ringing a bell.
Gedaliah
Yeah.
in Jeremiah 41. Well, it's on the 3rd day, so it's right there at the. It is essentially a week before the. It's a week before the 10th day, so it's before Yom Kippur. This is 41 verse 1. In the 7th month, Ishmael, son of Netaniah, son of Elishama, who was of royal descent and one of the king's commanders, came with 10 men to Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, at Mizpah, and they ate together there at Mizpah. Then Ishmael, son of Netaniah, and the 10 men who were with him arose and struck down Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan, with a sword and killed him, because the king of Babylon put him in charge of the land. So go back
So it was a coup.
it was, if you go back to the previous chapter, it says, Yochanan, son of Kareah, and all the officers and troops of the open country came to Gedaliah at Mitzvah and said to him, do you know that King Baalis of Ammon has sent Ishmael, son of Netaniah, to kill you? Gedaliah, son of Achiam, would not believe them. Yochanan, son of Kareah, said secretly to Gedaliah at Mitzvah, if you go down and strike down Ishmael, son of Netaniah, before anyone knows about it, otherwise he will kill you, and all the Judeans who are gathered about you will be dispersed, and the remnant of Judah will perish. Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, answered Yochanan, son of Kareah, do not do such a thing. What you're saying about Ishmael is not true. But it turned out it was true, and he was murdered soon after that. So it's the third day of the 7th month.
But he was warned, and
He was warned. He didn't believe that the end would come as a result of that, but he was wrong. He was murdered, and a coup took place. That's correct. So those are the reasons for that. So we can look at a couple different other traditions. These are Karaite fasting traditions. They fast on the 24th of Tishri, which is the 7th month, the 10th of Tevet, the 9th of Tammuz, the 7th, and the 10th of Av. So we are in the month of Av now, the 5th month. And so the Karaites consider the period from the 1st of Tammuz until the 10th of Av, a 40-day period of mourning for destruction of the temple, for refraining from eating meat. Weddings, all kinds of entertainment are not permitted during that time. Continuing. On the Sabbath from the 9th of Tammuz until the 10th of Av, so that's the 9th of the 4th month to the 10th of the 5th month, 4 or 5 special prayers are read in the morning. On the 7th of Av, after the service, Karaites read special prayers. The morning reaches its peak on the 10th of Av. On this day, following the service, Karaites read Lamentations and reading the Consolation, or Nehamot, and thus the services of that day are concluded. So there are different fasting traditions in play, but it's agreed that they're fasting on the 5th month is fasting for the destruction of the temple. All right, so back to our regularly scheduled Midrash. All right. Okay, so we already talked about this a little bit. Another Hebrew title by this is called Mishnah Torah. Another title is of it comes from that. Mishnah, of course, is second Torah. We recognize the word Shana, like from Rosh Hashanah. A repetition of the Torah would be another way of saying it. Shavua Tov, guys. Have a good week.
Thank you.
One thing, the word Deuteronomy, Deuteronomos, second law, so to speak. Much of the Torah is repeated here, often with different perspective. In Moshe's first-person narrative, there's a lot of differences here too. We'll see in the second slide here. But don't think of Mishnah Torah as a repeat of previous instructions. Rather, it's instructions that need to be repeated. That's a body of instructions need to be repeated. I think is a good way of looking at it. How this is, it's not really the same. Well, look, this slide really tells us that. I think lays it out for us because it's not really a summary of the previous books. In fact, it's not really even a summary of Shemot, of Exodus. There's only, in Deuteronomy, in Devarim, there's only a few of the incidents that we see in Exodus. And guess what? Is there mention of the Mishkan in Deuteronomy, in Devarim? There is not. So there's a lot of instructions that occur in the Torah that aren't repeated here. So it's not really a repetition of the Torah because it doesn't really repeat lots of the parts of it. In other words, if you're looking if the mitzvot that are in Vayikra or Leviticus, very few of those are transported and repeated here in Devarim. So Devarim does catch up to those that were not counted. Some of them were not counted from previous Torah portions. They're all caught up here when it gets to the final numbers of it. But None of the mitzvot that are recounted in the book of Bamidbar that we just finished are repeated here in Torah or in the book of Devarim at all. So it's really to say there's a lot of things in it that are somewhat a repetition. I think that it's not really Mishnah HaTorah. It's not really a repetition of the Torah, and certainly wouldn't say it's not second law either if most of the mitzvot are not even repeated here. So it is a standalone book it is obviously from Moses' perspective. Most of the mitzvot you see in Devarim are appearing here for the first time. But when you look at it, if this, read the first verse of it, may well have been Joshua writing it. The events that are recounted here happened somewhere between 38 and 40 years ago, for the most part.
That would be one reason for some of the gaps, maybe.
Well, the other thing is, all the people that did it 40 years ago were dead, so he's re-going over it for their kids.
For-
A lot of tradition lost.
Yeah. It's repeating it, but unless they've learned those words from the Torah, memorizing the Torah was something that people were able to do at the time.
No, they weren't playing on a Game Boy.
Yeah. So the word in this translation as desert plain, I think most of the translations we read today had Arabah in it. You may recognize that as a cognate for Arabia, right? Arabah. It says, in the desert plain opposite Suf, or in other words, on the opposite side of Suf, but Yam Suf, of course, is where the Egyptian army was destroyed. Arabah is Arabia. So when Paul says, at Mount Sinai in Arabia, it's really the Hebrew word there would have been Arabah, right? The desert plain. So that Arabia is derived from the desert plain. As we talked about before, Suf means the sea of the end or sea of sweeping away. We looked at the other uses of the word Suf or Sufa in the Hebrew text that lead us to say that Yam Suf is an apt description of where Israel won and Egypt lost. That the Egyptian army, the Pharaoh's army was destroyed at the sea of the end, or the sea of the sweeping away. Now, we kind of read it in the, this is Rash's comment about these are the words of rebuke. You can kind of see that it's influenced, I think, by the Targum, which kind of leads the same way. He says these are words of rebuke. It says all places where they angered Yah are listed there. But Moses was vague with the words because of respect for Israel. He doesn't name the sins as it does in the Targum. So I think that's where Rashi's comment is drawn. And so the places here, Rashi would say in the desert, rebuke them from angering the Almighty in the desert when he said, if we had only died in Egypt. That's from Exodus 16. In the plain, the sin of Baal Peor at Shittim, in the plains of Moab. Yam Suf, the rebellion at Yam Suf. They said, we don't. Remember what happened at Yam Suf? What was a rebellion at Yam Suf? They're saying the Egyptian army is coming. Well, let's go back. We can't fight them. We're all going to be killed. Let's just go back to Egypt. You see that in several places, but let's look in Psalm 106:7, where it kind of talks about their rebellion. 106:7. Doesn't give a lot of detail. It says, our forefathers in Egypt did not perceive your wonders. They did not remember your abundant love, but rebelled at the sea, at Yam Suf. Reads how JPS translates it, but it's talking about their rebellion. they really wanted to, they thought Moses was going to kill them. And you can certainly see why, right? I mean, they were up against the sea, and the Egyptian army, the most powerful army in the world, was coming at them with all the chariots.
It's down the only escape route.
Only escape route, they were coming down. Yeah, it's like, yep, we're kind of bottled up here, guys. Paran is essentially that's the location where they did not believe the spies, or they did not believe the report of the positive report that Joshua and Caleb brought back.
What you said earlier in the services today, that and the rest of the spies did give an accurate report.
Is their interpretation
Is their interpretation that
of what it
we
meant.
can't do it? Well, God said you can, so you're going against God.
Yeah. They reported what they saw,
Mhm.
but also kind of added their own feelings about what it
Drew
meant.
the wrong conclusion.
Yeah. The conclusion was we're all going to die,
Mhm.
instead of what great miracle is going to be when we're rescued from this. We've been promised they're going to be, we'll be able to go and take this. We've been told this multiple times. Ultimately, in hindsight, it would have been better for them not to do their reconnaissance mission.
Remember how many times Israel complained to Moses, what did you bring us out into the desert to die? Well, when God got fed up with it, that's exactly what he did.
Yeah, it did.
Tophel and Lavan. What is said about this is we're not really sure where that's mentioned. We don't see those place names mentioned in the scripture before this. So the place name of Tophel is close to the word for foolishness, and Lavan is the word obviously for white. But it's not really about Lebanon, because they weren't in Lebanon, so it can't be the text. So they're saying, well, where he rebuked them for the foolish things they said about the manna, which was white, Lavan.
That was gonna be my guess. But I thought that's the only thing white that happened.
Yeah. And I would say it probably was a little bit darker than white, honestly. If you're, but I don't know. Manna and coriander seed, so it has the texture of coriander seed, tastes like,
And it was a one-time miracle from God, so it could have been.
yeah. All right. So essentially what Rashi is talking about is naming the places, not the sins. And so these place names, Rashi is basically going through the place names and naming the sins that were omitted in the text. Hatzerot is Korach's rebellion. I think it's the same place that Miriam had her, essentially her leprosy or akin to leprosy. Dizahav translates to enough gold, and that's the golden calf. Got enough gold, you're drinking enough powdered gold, right? Your guts are rich.
You want gold? Here, eat it.
Yeah, eat it. So bottom line is, this is places or parts or locations where Israel rebelled. In terms of popularity of quotations, it's the third number. It's the most of all the books of the Torah to be quoted in the Nazarene writings in the New Testament. It only falls second or third to Isaiah and the Psalms. We see the word covenant, Beit, appear nearly 30 times, the book of Devarim. So it's quite, you can definitely conclude that Devarim is a covenant document.
Oh, a lot of it is there, I will do this if you do that,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Okay, Ashtaroth is another place name. Og, king of Bashan, who dwelt in Ashtaroth in Edrei. You might recognize Ashtaroth means like Asherah.
Mhm.
It's a feminine deity worshipped in groves. It's the female counterpart to Baal. Ashtaroth, Asherah was a moon goddess. You see other names: Astarte, Ishtar, Estar. Venus would be the Roman version. Estre is the Anglo-Saxon version. Same word.
So was Queen Esther named after that?
Yes, I think so. That's why a lot of people would want to say, well, we want to call her Hadassah.
Oh, so that it's not.
Right.
God's name.
Mhm. So the command here is to possess the land, and we talked about this in the past, but what is the land? It's not just the postage stamp size that Israel is today, right? It goes as far as the
The
great
sea.
river Euphrates.
From the river to the sea.
Yeah, from the Euphrates River to the sea.
So they're,
All Israel will be free.
they're protesting, but using chants that mean Israel will have all that land.
Yeah.
God has a sense of humor.
Even if the protesters do not.
And
Any
they're
doubt.
so, I wanna say stupid, but
They are, well,
they don't know.
they're
what-
uneducated. They don't
They're
want,
uneducated, yeah, that's what I'm trying.
you
was
take
trying-
all of it, like gays for Palestine. All right, we'll pay for you to go to Palestine.
You'll be dead so
Yeah.
fast?
Mhm.
Yeah, they won't let a gay person live.
No.
They don't know what they're fighting
There's a couple of questions here. What land belongs to Israel? We've talked about that.
All of it.
Is it a gift if it's yours to take, or do you have to take it? I'm sorry, let me back up. Is it still a gift if it is yours for the taking, or do you have to, or if you have to take it, is it a gift?
for. I think both,
Yes.
Because they were told they had to do certain things, right?
right? You gotta go possess it.
You've got to take possession of it, yeah. But it's not going to come through the mail. You've got to go to the post office to get it. In that
Yeah.
sense.
You gotta do it. But there's a question of God's timing too.
Timing, yes, we've seen that. Back, if you think back to the spies, right?
Mhm.
What happened with that? There was a time when they were supposed to go. Then they're told not to go, and what did they do?
They go-
They went, and
then
they
it
got
didn't go
beaten.
well.
They got ran. They got ran away like bees
They're
chasing them.
even told why not to go, because God will not be with you.
So why did Moshe tell Israel not to fear, or to not fear, and to not be discouraged? Because they would fear and would be discouraged. So that's I told you in advance. That's a common thing. You know, Yeshua said that a lot. I told you in advance. Yeah.
And you wonder why they were so afraid when they already done all that other conquering against all odds. You know, what was the difference here? The fact that some of their spies said, no, we can't do it? That made them afraid now?
So the question kind of comes up: did Israel ever possess all the land given to them?
No.
And what we read in the book of Joshua is, so Adonai gave Israel all the land which he swore to give to their ancestors, and they took possession of it and lived in it. Then Adonai gave them rest all around according to everything he had sworn to their ancestors. Now a man from their enemies stood against them. Adonai handed them over to all their enemies, over to them, excuse me. Continue reading. In Genesis 17:8, I think we have the answer to this question. Because Joshua said they got everything, but we can see there's two everythings. The everything gets talked about here to Abraham is, I'll give you and your seed and after you the land of your sojourn all the land of Canaan as an everlasting possession.
It hasn't all come to pass.
So
Yeah, that's what he was talking about earlier. Just because it's given to you, don't mean you're possessing one.
But if you go back a slide, back to Joshua said, so Adonai gave Israel all the land which he swore to give to their ancestors, and they took it in possession on it and lived in it.
Oh, okay. That changes what I said.
So I think what's going on here is that there's two different definitions of what was given to them. There's the greater Israel, which is Euphrates, the great river Euphrates to the Wadi of Egypt. And then there's the Canaan promise that Abraham was also given. And I think that this is addressing that the land of Canaan was completely under their control in Joshua's day. Now, we can look at a little further on. Well, in Exodus, in Shemot, talking about the land sworn to your fathers, here's listed as Canaan land, the land of the Canaanite. We see that a couple of times. So I think that's what's going on in the promise that Josh was talking about. He's talking about the promise here in Exodus 13, the land of Canaan, as he swore to you and to your forefathers. Adonai, as your God, has multiplied you, and here you are today, like the stars of the heavens in number. May Adonai, God of your fathers, increase you 1,000 times as many as you are, and may he bless you just as he has promised you. So, this is kind of, again, a future promise that is given to Israel. If you look at the numbers, has this promise been fulfilled?
Yes.
Well, if you can only see about 3,000 stars, and so with your eyes, and 30,000 with a handheld telescope, Israel has far surpassed those numbers today. I think it's more of a euphemistic kind of a question, but if host of heaven means stars, then the number of them can't be counted. Israel is 1,000 times uncountable number, according to Jeremiah 33. So from a perspective outside the atmosphere, the number of stars, 10 to the 25th power, a 1 followed by 25 zeros. No human could live long enough to count all the stars in their lifetime, if they counted the entire lifetime without stopping for, to watch a baseball game. But I think the larger promise and the smaller promise, the larger promise it is said that was very close, if not achieved, during the reign of King Solomon. But the data is hard to verify or to come by in terms of how far Solomon's empire
He at least had, I would say, influence over it.
Oh, yeah, yes, I'd say that's true. All right, which brings us to our thoughts and questions slide. I really like, of all the books of the Torah, Devarim is my favorite, I'll say, to start with. It's really my favorite books in the entire scriptures. It seems to be very straightforward, and for me, it's a straightforward, more of a easy to understand text, in that Moshe gives his perspective on things, and it's written in the first person for much of it, and so I think it's easier to read and more direct. I enjoy reading Devarim. I think most of all the Torah. This, of course, it's if you look at the the question too, with whom or with what can you relate? It's not really a with whom, but I think a with what, in the sense of Moses is near the end of his life, is recounting a lot of the things that didn't go well, right? The rebellion of Israel. He actually, in this portion, says, you caused me to not, your rebellion caused me not to inherit the promise, or to go into the promised land. And so he essentially blames Israel for,
Yeah, he lays it on them.
he was really, I mean, it was, if you look at it from his perspective, had you not rebelled, I would not have been angry and would not have struck the rock.
Well, and I think they had, okay, in Moses' favor, they had rebelled so many times, I think it was like the last straw.
The last straw, yeah.
You know, it's
kinda
like
was,
you
yeah.
rebelled, you rebelled, you rebelled. He held on to it until that last one.
Yeah.
But that's, yeah.
Both God and Moses called them obstinate, troublesome people.
Mhm.
And the only reason he's saving them is because of promises he made to their forefathers.
And as we know, Moses eventually did get into the promised land for a short period of time at the Mount of Transfiguration.
Oh, okay, I was going, when did he get in there? Okay, yes. And I think he's gonna get in there. I have a feeling he may be one of the two witnesses at the end, too.
It will be, yeah, people said that, yeah. And so, where, Mount Nebo, where Moses is buried, is on the east side of the Jordan River, looking down. It's in what is modern day Jordan, looking down across the Jordan Valley, and it seemed, I mean, the way into Israel, the conquering way into Israel, wasn't from the south to north. It was going parallel to Israel and then coming in from the side, through the kind of passes of Shechem and so on. What do we learn about Elohim or Yeshua about this particular Torah portion? Can you come up with anything from that? Any thoughts?
Well, if you go with the other scriptures for our half-Torah reading,
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't real happy with them.
No.
For their rebellion and their unbelief and their worship of pagans, idols.
Yeah, and you can look at it in a sense, larger, major Muslim movement sense of, even if you rebel, and if you fall short, Yah will find a way to make the prophecy come true.
Yeah. He'll fulfill his end of the bargain.
Well, and yours too, in that sense. I mean,
Yeah.
Israel rebelled, but they will be redeemed and get to go into the land. That's what we see in our Haftorah reading, in the very end of the last couple of verses of that. I think that he's not happy with their feasts. He's not. It's not. Our Haftorah reading is not condemning the biblical holidays.
Mm-hmm.
It's condemning.
The heart.
Well, he said. Why does he say that he doesn't accept their sacrifices?
Because your heart, for your sacrifice to be accepted, your heart has to be in it too.
He also says you have blood on your hands. And so it's not the killing of the animals that causes blood on your hand, it's the killing of whatever that causes blood on your hand. Not doing what is right and basically
Well,
living a bloody existence
if they were sacrificing their children
to Moloch or whoever. Yeah.
to the idols,
Mhm.
that would be blood on their hands.
Yeah. There's a lot to in the readings in an overall sense. We can kind of see how leaders have failed Israel repeatedly. I mean, in the beginning of the reading of our Haftorah, it's a series of failed or bad kings of Israel are leading Israel into destruction and captivity. Surely saw that in reading in Zechariah. Is that these things are coming upon us because of our rebellion. But these times, one of the things we can read about the 9th of Av and the 4 holidays there is that, or the 4 fast days rather, is that at some point in time, the fast days of the 5th, the 4th, the 5th, the 7th, and the 9th month will be turned to times of joy and rejoicing. Yeah.
I'm kind of wondering, will that be probably in the millennial kingdom?
I would say quite possibly. I think that it may be that whenever the next temple is built and Yah's feet dwell in it, or
Yeah, I think
that's
that
the
would be-
Yeah,
that's the
well,
time
that's-
period, yeah. Which could be called the millennial kingdom as well.
During Yeshua's reign on earth.
Yeah, possible. Yeah. Or before that, in the sense of that temple where Yah dwells his feet, is maybe a different time than we read in Revelation, although that's probably a topic for another day. What is the text telling us to do?
Telling us to do nowadays, here in this time.
Yeah. I think that it's directly, the two mitzvot are directly written to the judges of Israel. But I think that we can adopt those as well, as good to do things, maybe not a mitzvah to do that. We're not as judges in Israel, but we can judge justly, which I think is what's
We
going on.
judge over things all the time.
Yeah.
At our levels.
Yeah.
Not as a judge of the people, judge of how we act now. Our families are, what we adhere to or don't.
Because there's kind of one standard of justice, and we shouldn't give, more leeway to those who are rich or to those who are destitute. So, any thoughts on a short summary that we can put together for this? If you were to tell someone about the first reading of Devarim, what would you say?
Kind of brought out all the sins that kept them out of the promised land for 40 years. And all the rebellions. And when you go in, you better do better.
Now that you should learn the lesson of those that have gone before you, right? Kind of see that in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, right?
Actually,
These
that's
things
kind
were-
of my
these things were
motto
written
is
to us.
It's a whole lot easier watching people make mistakes, and I need to be wise enough not to do them instead of making them on my own. It's a lot less painful.
Can we perfectly do that? Even
No.
Moses couldn't.
No, but
Right.
you
But
watch.
we need to be trying.
We need to be trying. And there's a lot of people today that don't even try.
Yeah.
And you look at them and go, can't you see where that's gonna go?
Yeah. As you see from 1 Corinthians 10, that these events of the ancient times past were collected and written for us, that we might be able to use them wisely to walk our faith out.
Right.
And I think that's the bottom line lesson that we can learn from this.
Life is hard. It's even worse when you're stupid.
Is that a John Wayne quote?
Yes. Oh, misquoted, but yeah.
All right, well, let's pray. Thank you for allowing us to Midrash on your Torah. Thank you for your words to us of wisdom. We ask you to give us strength and wisdom to walk them out. In Yeshua's name we ask this. Amen.
Molly wants some cheesecake.